We got another cop. School resource officer decides to pull guns on the black child for a Nintendo Switch. Yes, pulled a gun on a child for a Nintendo Switch. Here it is.
If I told you I had a Switch in my pocket, what would you think I was carrying? When a black autistic teenager told a classmate he had a Switch, they didn't think he was talking about the game system. So a few minutes later, a school security officer had him on the ground pointing an actual weapon. Normally, the child in this video is required to have an adult aide shadow him everywhere he goes. But today, that aide was absent. And even though the officer completely ignored protocol for what's supposed to happen in these situations, the school district is blaming the child for the incident. In press statements, the school district is bending the definition to make it seem like he admitted to having a weapon. And news outlets are using that statement for their headlines, painting the picture that the officer is justified because he felt threatened. I can't help but think that if the words switch, piece, or tool were used by a student with less melanin, it wouldn't result in them seeing the barrel of an actual weapon.
Put it up. That young man's at school. He has a gun pointed to his head. Content creator Tony Weaver Jr. recaps what happened. You saw that great video, Tony. In North Carolina, a Fort Dorchester High School student had a gun pulled on him by a resource officer. The black student is 16 years of age. According to the cop, he thought he had a gun, but all the child had was a Nintendo Switch. That's it. Police say a staff member spoke to the officer about a student who reportedly told a different student that he was carrying a weapon. The resource officer went into the cafeteria to handle the situation, identifying the student based on a description from the staff member. When the officer asked the student what was in his pocket, he allegedly said, a Switch. Lawyers say the student was referring to a Nintendo Switch, a gaming console he carries with him as a comfort item that is known to staff. But the officer misinterpreted his statement to mean he had a Glock switch. Yeah, Glock switch. It was at this time that the officer drew his service weapon and had the student lie on the ground. Police say the student was detained without incident. Nobody was harmed during these events. According to them, officers are still investigating, quote, to ensure the safety and security of everyone at the school. No charges have been filed against the student, who has since been confirmed not to have any sort of weapon at all. There's more. Fraser Law officers, said in a release that the student the school resource officer put a gun on is autistic and is enrolled in the school's special education program. They also said that he is required to be accompanied by an adult aide at all times, but was not with him during the time of the incident. Now, there are a couple of things happening here. One, you have a massive misalignment of the truth and how the story has been told so far. You have headlines that basically justify the officer's position or point of view based on what he assumed the child meant in the statement. Beyond that, you typically have contracts between the child's parents and the school when you have someone who requires a special need. In this case, it was a Nintendo Switch. It's called a comfort item. That comfort item is allowable in almost every jurisdiction, school jurisdiction that I'm aware of. Comfort item. Everyone is aware of what that comfort item may be. Sometimes it's a blanket. Sometimes it's a Nintendo Switch, as long as it's not harmful. So Frazier said the teen's individualized special education or education program, this is a contract, IEP. This is your direct contract between the parents and the school. Allowed him to have the gaming console on his person, meaning it was an approved item for comfort. The attorney clarified he had an additional switch in his backpack because it's important to his IEP. The biggest mistake here was the administration not providing him with either another shadow or an alternative plan and saying, quote, hey, our shadow is not here. You can't leave the classroom right now, end quote. Frazier said he added that when the incident occurred, Murray was walking with a friend who was not a special needs student, quote, but had he had an adult with him, especially one familiar with his IEP, they could have said, hey man, when he says switch, he means the game system. He means the Nintendo Switch, the one that his IEP covers. That's what he's talking about. So once again, we have to correct the headlines and the narrative because this is more about the neglect of the institution, neglect of following the actual IEP contract, and the fact that the cop got it wrong. The only person that did exactly what they were supposed to do and following all terms of the agreement was the child who had a gun to his head. He's the only one that did everything right. Only one. And now this has happened because they decided to tell a false narrative. There's more. Frazier, former police officer, said there is a unique protocol for addressing students who are potentially armed. It usually involves the student being moved to a separate secure area, often by multiple officers and not in the cafeteria while other students and faculty are present, he said. Frazier added that the situation could have ended poorly if it were an armed person with ill intent, as that person could have gotten off a shot either at the officer or someone else. Quote, or conversely, if this kid's level of autism wasn't as high functioning as it is, had he not complied or put his hand in his pocket, the officer had his gun drawn, he'd had gotten shot and murdered over a game system in his school by an SRO, the attorney said, and that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That part. If this was not a high functioning individual who had a gun to his head and decided to ask questions rather than comply, or say, look, I'm going to show you what it is and pull it out, and all of a sudden he gets shot before he can do so. That is the reason you have proper protocol. You have an IEP. You have administrators who follow the rule. That young man should have had his shadow aide with him. The problematic statement by the school officials. The following email went out to staff members and families. Quote, dear Fort families and staff, this morning, Fort Dorchester High School was placed on a hold following multiple reports of a student possibly in possession of a gun on campus. When the school resource officer approached the student stated they had a gun. Lie. And kept a hand in their pocket. In response, the officer drew his weapon and directed the student to comply. The student followed the officer's instructions, and the situation was brought under control without injury. After a search, no weapon was found. I have more of the statement. It does continue, but already an entire school system, adults, they got together, conspired, came up with a narrative, changed just a slight part of that narrative. Said, no, he said he had a gun. Yeah, he said he had a gun. And then that's why the officer had to do what he had to do. He had a gun, and the kid said he had a gun. Everybody said he had a gun, even the kid. No, never happened. Never happened. He said he had a Switch, a Nintendo Switch. The fact that you don't properly contextualize that part of the story is evidence of what you're attempting to do, which is to cover your own ass and not give a damn about this student. It continues, quote, "The district is fully cooperating with the North Charleston Police Department. All district safety policies and procedures were followed and will continue to be upheld through this process. The district has additional security personnel to support students and staff throughout the day. The safety and security of students and staff remains our top priority. Thank you for understanding and continued support." Keep that statement up. The district is fully cooperating with the North Charleston Police Department for what? There's no crime that happened. The only person that was out of line was the cop that drew his gun. On the real gun, there was a cop's. There was no gun, no mention of a gun. What are you cooperating about? Unless you're cooperating to get this cop arrested for his negligence. All district safety policies and procedures were followed. Another lie. Another lie. According to Frazier, you still had students and faculty in proximity and did not remove the student as the policy requires. It's another lie. Put up the leadership. You have Principal Raymond Eldridge, Superintendent Chad Daugherty, and North Charleston Police Chief Dr. Ron Camacho. Doc, I put you in here, sir, because they mentioned your agency, so I assume you're part of it somehow. And if you're not, you need to tell them to keep your name out of their mouth. But they put you in this, so I'm going to put you in it too. What are you all doing? These are children. The young man did not have anything on his persons that he was not allowed to have by way of a direct IEP. It's a violation of contractual terms when you, as an institution, when you do not honor the IEP. It's a contract. And then to create a false narrative after the fact shows your lack of good faith. I want to give a special thanks to Tony Weaver Jr. for bringing attention to this story, who delivers insight and commentary on TikTok for a number of items. If you don't follow him, you need to. All right, Sharon, thoughts here.
To work so hard, to really work overtime, to lie. These are the same people that tell kids, see something, say something. I just had this conversation this morning with somebody in a school. Why would children do the right thing when they're raised by adults who act in a degenerate way? That adults are acting in a way that is a lie. And if you think a child can't see that, good luck to you. I submit to you, Doc, that there's a whole circle of evidence that shows why we're in the predicament we're in this society. Because adults can't say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Whoops, I didn't read that correctly. Let me fix that. I know how to apologize to my own daughter. If I apologize, does that mean, oh no, I'm not a perfect parent? I think it's healthy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't understand what's so difficult about being what we know each and every one of us is, imperfect. But we can try. Why can't we just be imperfect and be okay with that?
You know, we forget sometimes what I'm sorry means, or I apologize, because see, the student won't get an apology. He's not getting an apology because everybody's still trying to create a story or a narrative that somehow he did something wrong. That apology says, I love you. I'm sorry says, I love you. I love you enough to be honest with you that I made a mistake, and I care about your feelings enough and what you experience enough to acknowledge that I hurt you. I'm sorry. He'll never get that. At least under this circumstance, he won't, unless somebody changes their way here. So I say to the young man, I'm sorry. He never should have experienced this. Contract on file, IEP. He's walking by himself, no adult aid as mandated by the contract. There's a reason that contract says that. He could have died. And these adults coordinate a false narrative in order to protect themselves and not even say, I am sorry to the student that they involved. All right, we'll follow up.